Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside Marine. This week, I'm going to be chatting to the CEO of Winch Design, Aino-Leena Grapin. Hi there, Aino. Welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Thanks for having me.
It's really, really great to have you give us some time today. It's such a busy time. And, the podcast is about, getting to know you a bit more, understanding a bit more about your journey and what's happening in the business right now. So I'm really excited to get going. And we always start right at the beginning. So, Aino, tell us, how and why did you get into the marine industry?
So I was actually headhunted. I thought it would be relevant to you. It wasn't my grand plan to begin with. My background is I studied business. I'm French. I've lived in lots of countries. I think of myself as European. I studied business. I had a pretty broad training at the beginning. I would call it training, but I was a strategy consultant at Bain & Company. That gave me access to a lot of different types of business issues, and then specialized in the art world. So for most of my career, for about a decade, I was at Christie's. I was later at Paddle 8, which was an online auction house selling contemporary art online. So I really worked in auctions and selling rare and unique things to the same types of clients that we have now here at Winch. And it really took Jane and Andrew Winch thinking out of the box, as they usually do. Andrew's a great out-of-the-box thinker. He's a great creative. And when they were looking for the first CEO for their business in 2016, they actually wanted someone from outside the industry, but who would be able to cross over. So similar clients, managing creatives, all of those things they were looking for in me. But when I got the phone call, I was very surprised. And I had to admit, I know nothing about yachts. I know nothing about private aviation. And I do know about the world of interiors and furniture, etc., but not the Winch world of interiors. So that's how I joined, I guess, the marine industry, but also, as I said, the other things that Winch gets involved with.
Absolutely. And up to now, since you've been in the business, I guess comparing the marine side of the business to some of the other areas in the business or some of the other industries that you've been in, is there any kind of, I suppose, differences that you've seen, or maybe anything that's taken you by surprise with the marine industry?
I must say, before I joined, Andrew took me to a shipyard to visit my very first shipyard. It was at Amels. I will never forget it. And I went on board several yachts in build. And I thought I had seen it all at Christie's, incredible paintings, incredible homes, etc. But I just felt like I had stepped into a whole different dimension of attention to detail, quality, and custom work. And I really deeply believe, not being a creative in the classical sense myself, but I really believe that creativity is one of the things that you can't replace. You can maybe enhance it with artificial intelligence, but I really think creativity is this incredible magic that is human. And I really enjoy working with creatives. So I think the marine industry takes it to a whole different level. That said, I think that it also benefits a great deal from bringing people from outside the industry, from the space of luxury or hospitality, architecture, and within Winch we have a great diversity of people who are textile designers or furniture designers, procurement specialists, marketing specialists, and to bring all of that into the marine industry, because it's such a niche that it can really enrich itself from sort of new ideas.
Absolutely. And is there anything that you feel that the marine industry can maybe learn from some of the other industries that you've been involved in?
So as I said, we also are involved in aviation and architecture, so residential. both exterior of homes and interior. I would say that there are a great deal of residential trends that are permeating into the yacht world and into aviation, actually, because most of our clients want their aircraft to not look like aircraft. They want it to feel homey and safe and luxurious. So I definitely think that the trends are coming from the residential and the feeling of being in a home. And so I think that the yacht industry is taking a great deal of inspiration from that and making the yachts look more like homes. I think that's what we're all saying, you know, very nice homes, but homes nonetheless. And I think that, again, the yacht industry can also take inspiration, you know, from hospitality when it comes to, you know, a great bar in a fantastic 5-star hotel, that ambiance. And actually our clients often tell us, this is my favorite bar. I love this about the spa in this hotel, you know, etc. And then we take it to another level, obviously, as a challenge. But we take inspiration from that, from the luxury world, from what is happening in, you know, all of these new showrooms that the LVMH, you know, LVMH group and Kering are showcasing their brands, what they're doing with their brands, and architecture, art. You know, we really try to encourage our teams to go out there and explore the world and to bring all of these things back, not just on Instagram and not just on Pinterest, but, you know, in the real world, to bring it all back into the work that they do.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting, you've touched already on the importance of having lots of different types of experience in the business, and that kind of diversity of thought and ideas. And, you know, something that's really, really interests me is the journey that you guys have been on in the last few years and actually kind of made that jump in the I think just over a year ago now, to being an employee-owned business. And I think a lot of the listeners would really love to hear a bit more about kind of that process and that journey and really, you know, now a year or so on, how's that working out?
Yes, so it's actually, the whole story probably started over 10 years ago in terms of Andrew and Jane having this, first being exposed to the idea of employee ownership, and then a very slow maturation, because all of the things that needed to happen for this to work were quite unusual, I would say, in the creative and design industry, is for a founder to pass on the reins to the next generation and the next. So for us to become employee owned, we already needed to stand on our own 2 feet, if you see what I mean. So he brought in an independent chairman, Clive Harrell, brought in a CEO, myself, delegated more and more to his teams and to our 2 heads. So Jim Dixon is the head of Yachts and Aviation, and now creative director and managing partner. And Simon Tomlinson is the same in architecture, and they both sit on the operating board with me. And so they interact with clients and manage the projects, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that, and then we have a partner group. So all of that structure needed to rest on our shoulders, so that we could actually do this transition. Otherwise, we're still far too dependent on our own founder, right? So, and then the employee ownership doesn't work. So we have become 100% employee owned, as you said, just over a year ago, and now we're on this journey. So we have to see, what does it mean at Winch to be employee owned? How do we involve people in some of the decisions that we make? How do we ensure that people feel like employee owners, not just employees? And what does that mean? Are they taking initiative? Do their ideas count? How do we bring them up? You know, how do we find out about their ideas? You know, et cetera, et cetera. And that is different in any employee business. And it's also, I would say, it's not a magic wand that you can wave and everything's perfect. But I think for a people business like Winch Design, where our our success factor is mainly attracting and retaining the best people that we can find in any of the given roles. That is really what we're about. And being employee owned, we felt was the best way to do that now and in the future. So that's why it means a great deal to us, and it hopefully makes us a really great workplace for all our employee owners. And we're still learning, so we're still on this journey.
It's whenever I've looked into employee-owned businesses in the past, they talk about the real importance of the culture of the business, not just kind of the culture that you're trying to create once it's employee-owned, but actually really the culture that you need to have before you can, I suppose, even consider that option. And how hard or how much work has really gone into kind of, I suppose, really defining the culture at Winch Design, or is it something that's really kind of quite organically, sort of created itself?
It in the first few years of the company, it's very much organic and spontaneous, and actually trying to summarize it in bullet points probably at that point goes very much against the culture, which is at Winch Design has always been to care for people and to have a family culture, so a real team thing. But it can't be the same when you're 15. Or when I joined, we were just 65 and we're now 145. So it can't be the same, or you can't go about it in the same way exactly to nurture it and promote it. So we did do an exercise of actually defining this Winch way, defining that recipe, just so that we could hold on to it and come back to it when we needed to. And we actually published a little booklet, which we give all our employees. So we did do that exercise just to like taking a photograph at a certain given time. This is what our culture is. This is what we're about. And then a great deal of effort goes into just nurturing it. So company away days, we just had one last week, which was fantastic. The whole company basically drops everything. We hire a huge venue, and we just share and joke and get to know each other and have fun together, parties, and then just lots of in-between events, lunches that we do together. And then generally also just on the day-to-day basis is your colleague going to help you out when you're struggling? Do you feel like you can go up to anybody and ask questions? And just generally, just the quality of people, I think, is really going to define the culture, because, if you've got a great group of really interesting people, this alchemy of talent, then your days are just going to fly by. And if you hire really dull people who are just here for the paycheck, then, it's not going to be the same. So we really, really try to, it's so important, again, because of the talent. They're here also for the culture. They're here because of the projects, the caliber of projects that we do. They're here because they want to learn, but they're also here because of the fun family culture. Now, employee ownership culture, I think that's another layer that we're adding on top of it. And we're still defining what that means. Who knows? But it's not static. It is changing. And you do hear people say, oh, it was different when it was just, I remember just 25 of us. Of course it was different. Yeah.
It's really interesting. And it's always a challenge, I think, to hire for culture as well as kind of talent and skill, because it's almost, two very different, recruitment processes. And what's really interesting, what I just found you said, is really defining what the culture is, what you want almost the ethos of the culture to be, and then actually you nurture that with the away days and the team events. And for me, I think that's really, really important, because I think some businesses, they have the away days and the team events, and they look at that and that's that sort of culture bit, ticked off, right? But I think that's a great way to look at it. That's the stuff that nurtures actually the vision of the culture that you want to be creating.
Yes, and I think recruiting for culture doesn't mean we have to recruit one type of person. This is the perfect Winch Design employee. I think we can all be very different, but share the same some of the same values. And so long as we're passionate about what we do, even if we're completely different personalities and different nationalities, different everythings, all the better. Say Andrew and I, or Simon and Jim, my co-directors, we're all very different personality types. Simon's an architect. Jim is this meticulous genius designer. I'm a business person. We're very different, and different brain waves and brain profiles, but we share this passion. So, so that's part of the success as well.
Yeah, really great. So up to your career, you look back at your career up to now, what's something that you're kind of really most proud of?
Well, I would say, not because we've just been discussing it, but I would say that becoming employee owned and kind of being at the helm while that was happening was a real highlight of my career. And I would say, especially because of when we did it in the middle of the pandemic. So timing was such that, it was a really difficult time, and we pulled through it. And not only did we pull through it, but we managed to sell the company to the Employee Ownership Trust, which is now the sole shareholder of the company. And all of this, like this on Zoom.
Yeah, wow.
So that was really challenging, and it was sort of the as I said, the end of a phase of work that I had been brought on at Winch to ensure, the next 35 years, that we were going to have a succession plan, that we were going to be able to continue, because that's really what our founders wanted, is for the ethos of the company to continue for the long term. And this is the way that we found to do it. So that made me very proud, but also just pulling through, I would say, the pandemic in general. I think a lot of us have to think back to this different era, say March 2020, we didn't know what was going to happen. And the market went really quiet for a couple of months. It was really challenging personal time for everyone. It was a very sad time, and it was very stressful. Some of us were homeschooling or dealing with sick loved ones and trying to do our jobs at the same time. So it was a really difficult time, and I was so in awe of how the team showed resilience and pulled through. And then the market really picked up very fast, and we were able to sort of capture some of those opportunities, which was fantastic. But it was hard work, and I really feel like the team got closer together at that time as well, just because when we go through hardship together, I think we become a closer knit team. So that was quite special in a way.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there was no doubt that the pandemic was, I've heard it referred to as the leadership challenge of a generation, right? So I have huge amounts of respect for any business that probably went into the pandemic with such a strong culture and kind of employee togetherness that they to be able to very quickly achieve great things either through the pandemic or straight afterwards is a huge testament clearly to the culture of Winch. So yes, and it's fantastic to hear that obviously we all came out of that and incredibly busy, and that really brings us quite nicely on to the present and now. So the employee ownership's in place, the pandemic's out the way, we're all super busy. What's happening in the business right now? What's exciting right now?
So I think it's an interesting time. I think it's I was hearing Sir Tim Smith, the founder of what is it called? The Eden Project.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke at one of our away days. He was one of the great speakers. He's very no nonsense. And he was saying it's the most exciting time to be alive right now. So much is happening. And I think from my vantage point, I think we're kind of bracing ourselves for a global recession. Let's not lie to ourselves. That is coming. That's what the economists are saying. We have the challenges of inflation. So inflation in terms of our own costs, labor costs, and other costs, and also for our clients, that means who are thinking of building yachts, etc. That's impacting their projects as well. And it's kind of changing the way we're having to adapt to a world of high inflation, which in my lifetime or yours, we've never known. So it's really challenging for that, but there's plenty of opportunity. And I think that our clients still have a huge appetite for projects across the board. And I think the key is to be very well diversified. So if you're a very small business and you've got all your eggs in one basket, say you only have Russian clients, then you're in trouble. Or you only had Russian clients, now you're in trouble. And so it's super important, I think, that the industry is in tune with that and makes sure that they have a diversity of services that they offer, geographies that they're working in, and in our case, multiple industries as well, because we do residential and aviation and yachts. Just because I've seen in my six years at Winch Design, we'll have a slightly stronger year in one department, and then the next year it's the flip side is the reverse, and just we flip around. So I think that's a good way of capturing opportunity.
That's really, really interesting, and some great advice there for businesses, I suppose, who are starting to brace for what is coming down the road. And I mean, we always look at certainly the design industry as is one of the best ways to kind of get a feel for what is coming down the road, because obviously the design process is really what comes first ahead of the build or ahead of a project or a refit, and then that impacts then the builders themselves, then of course the equipment manufacturers and so on and so forth. And what are yes, we know the global situation and recessions potentially on the way, or here already, because some would argue. But from a design point of view, what are you seeing right now? Is there still appetite for more and more projects? Is the type of projects changing? Is there maybe a new type of client asking for new things? I mean, what's different now, I suppose, to maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago?
Well, I would say we're having even more conversations than we had 3, 4 years ago. So, so if you're looking at us as a sign of what's to come, I would say it's extremely positive. Where the demand is coming from has changed. So we're a little bit more westward focused than eastward. I would say the American market is very strong. American clients, as we know, love yachting, and the strong dollar is helping. So there's huge appetite there. And with that, and with underlying trends, I think that we are seeing different types of projects, many more explorer yachts concepts that we're doing, and in build that we're doing than a few years ago. We've been talking about the explorer yacht trend for years, but I feel this year for us, it's really taking off. We launched the XV67 concept with Heeson in Monaco, and we've had a huge amount of interest in that concept. 67 meter, packed with toys, a true explorer with the luxury and the true explorer credentials. A yacht you can really take anywhere. And I think what's also pushing that market is that there's strong demand in the charter market for charter in unexplored areas. And I think the brokers were saying in Monaco, we're really trying to convince the owners of yachts to charter in those waters. They are sure to find an interested party if they take that risk. And so anyway, I think that's really happening. We also have a 46-meter Explorer in build, which is really exciting for a family, and it's going to be a family adventure filled with lots of sustainable materials, etc. So it's a really fantastic project that we're working on. Slightly smaller than what you would you'd think of Winch for sometimes some of the larger sized projects, but we're really also looking at those different projects. We're also working on some multi-hull concepts, which we can't really talk about for the moment. Lots of sailing yachts. So let's see what's to come. I feel very optimistic because I just see a huge amount of demand and a huge amount of activity at the moment. And I think that will, as you say, as our projects are 4 to sometimes 5 years long, that gives us some visibility of what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the just go back to the Explorer yacht piece for a moment, and you're right. It's been a real hot conversation for sort of such a long time now, and a lot of the people I speak to also feel that the Explorer, this is now the time for the big Explorer yacht revolution, if you like. And is there anything particularly you think is really kind of driving that? Now is the time where it is finally going to happen to maybe the level we all expect. The interest, we touched on it before. Is that a new client? Is that a current client that with new ambitions or being braver? What's the catalyst?
I don't know that I can answer that question with any kind of authority, but I do feel that they are new clients, so it's expanding the market. People who might not have been just classic yacht buyers, but they do want to have an Explorer, and so I think that's where it's expanding into completely new clients. And I think maybe it's also what happened with the pandemic is it has changed a lot of perspectives, and people feel like you could have an Explorer doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to circumnavigate and spend months watching penguins. You might, and you might have scientists on board, and you might do all of those things, but it's the possibility. For some clients, they want to know that they have autonomy and they can go certain, hundreds of thousands of nautical miles. They might not want to or have to, but they want to know that they have the possibility of doing those things. So I think that people's worlds have expanded. They do want the possibility of being able to explore the world, to get away from everything, to have experiences that are completely unique. And I think with what's happened in the last few years, we will realize that life is short. We have to, those dreams that we had of exploring this part of the world or that part of the world, if you are able to do them now, then now is the time.
You also touched on one of the projects. It's filled with a lot of sustainable products, and sustainability again is a big discussion across certainly the super yacht sector right now. And are you seeing, with maybe this new customer interest or this new client interest, a new interest in sustainability becoming much more of a priority with what you're talking about with the clients?
Yes, I definitely have seen this in the last 12 to 18 months. We were certainly doing a lot of background research for years now into sustainable materials in particular, because we're trying to focus on where within our scope, where we can make an impact. Meanwhile, the shipyards are looking at propulsion, and the air conditioning companies are looking at better ways to reduce the hotel load, et cetera, et cetera. So we're all looking at our own scope and how we can have a positive impact. For us, it was mainly around sustainable materials, but not only. But what has changed is we now have a library. We have a sustainability specialist who's 100% dedicated to that. We have a library that we can call upon for all our projects. But what's really changed is that the clients themselves are asking us now. So it's becoming, and not even, I wouldn't say all the clients, but many more clients are making this one of their top 2 or 3 topics that they want to talk to us about. And so brilliant. That has really changed. And we're glad that we've done all this research, because we want to be the most knowledgeable in this new, innovative, but yet exquisite and exciting and luxurious material that we propose to use in your project. And I think that's really changed. And obviously the new generations are also pushing. And some of our projects are multi-generational, might have a grandfather and a son and a grandson involved. The new generation is obviously pushing as well. A lot is happening, and as you will have seen in Monaco as well, all the stands were focused on sustainability. There was something there, and I think all the companies are actually putting substantial R&D behind it, because this is what we've discovered. You can't just click your fingers and have sustainable solutions there. It takes a lot of research and verification to check that what you think is sustainable is actually the right thing to choose.
Yeah. With you said there about innovation along with sustainability, and it certainly feels to me that both within sustainability and just in general in our industry, like the innovation that's needed or happening, or developments that are happening in our industry right now, I personally feel the industry's never been such an exciting place to come into, and really, the projection going forward of a concept of coming into an industry which really is leading on innovation and design and kind of being brave with concepts. Do you think that requires businesses to maybe look at a different type of person when they're doing their recruitment, they're coming in, identifying the right people for their business? Does it need a new type of person within the business to keep up with maybe that innovation and those new ideas and that new type of customer?
Well, I'm sure it does, because I truly believe that the yachting industry can be like what Formula One is for the automotive industry. We have budgets and clients, like patrons, who allow us to push the boundaries and hopefully to find these exciting solutions, which could apply to the marine industry at large, and obviously we can also take inspiration from what innovation there is in the marine industry or elsewhere, and bring them into our projects. But we do all have this challenge, and I'm glad that the clients are challenging us now. I would say R&D needs creativity, but you also, as a leader, you also need to allow, if you are hiring creatives and people who have different skill sets, scientific backgrounds, analysts, it takes a village really to make these things happen. You also need to leave it alone. And we can learn from what other companies do to encourage creativity, is they generally create small teams and kind of let them, you need to give them a budget, you need to give them the means that they need, and then you have to also let them exist almost to one side from the business, and then bring it back into the business. So that's kind of what we did with, on a small scale, I would say, with sustainable materials. Is our sustainability specialist, Alex, she was researching all of these things, and we had to protect her from the demands of the business. Like, could you do this? Could you do that? And at the same time, then you have to reconnect it back into your day-to-day and make sure that it's relevant, so that all the things that she's researched, all these materials, that they're then used for the projects. So I guess it would be the same thing for a shipyard. If they've got a team researching fuel cell technology and hydrogen, etc., you kind of need to let them do their thing, but then you need to weave it back into your business. And I think that's an interesting leadership challenge that we're probably, as you said, the first one was the pandemic. Now we have this new leadership challenge, which is how do you encourage and foster this innovation that we all desperately need. Yeah, absolutely.
With sustainability and the real focus in the industry, which I believe is, over the last kind of 5 years, I suppose, has really rocketed. It does feel that the industry is really, really tuned into it, which is great, not just from an opportunity point of view, but a responsibility point of view as well. And I think that's certainly the shift in my opinion. But I know that actually also something that yourself personally and Winch is very passionate about is the environmental impact of our industry, specifically in the oceans, and the impact right now to our oceans in general. And I'd love to hear a bit more about the work that you're doing with Winch and obviously yourself as well in that area.
Yeah, so we've been supporting the Blue Marine Foundation for about a decade when they started. And that was through the London to Monaco bike ride, which has been a great fundraiser, but also a great awareness booster, I think, for the whole yachting industry of how important this cause was. I think we've really switched into a different gear now, because the research that they're doing and the work that they're doing is also showing that if we can save the oceans, they will save us. So it's not just, okay, the yachting industry needs pristine oceans, so because if there are no reefs and no fish to see, then the whole yachting experience suffers. We're now beyond that and into, obviously, with the climate challenge that we have, and it's COP27 at the moment, has just started. We know that climate change is incredibly important challenge to tackle. And what the research is showing is that the ocean is actually the solution to this. The oceans absorb far more carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases, etc., than land. So actually, just last night, Andrew Winch and I went to a talk in Westminster by Charles Clover, and he gave me this book, which he signed, which I haven't read yet, but it's How to Save the Oceans. And he gave us a bit of a summary, and that there were ministers there, etc., just supporting this. Lots of easy wins. And that's what I like about it, is that when you protect a marine area, like Blue Marine did with Ascension Island, which Peter Lurson donated for this marine protected area, the largest in the Atlantic Ocean. Within a few years, life had returned, and with the support of local communities and with education of children, the helping the local communities pivot from fishing and the other things that we're doing towards tourism and other activities, then within 2-3 years, it's completely transformed. So I think this is where we should really all focus. Rewilding the sea, and that's kelp and marine life, and protecting the oceans from trawling. So it's not against fishing, it's actually great for fishermen to encourage the fish to return, and the fish stock has been depleted, and the fish absorb all this greenhouse gas. So we need them for so many different reasons. So I think, again, this is something we all feel really strongly about. It started with The End of the Line. I don't know if you remember that documentary, very powerful documentary called The End of the Line. Now it's about rewilding, and we're rewilding on land, and 10% of land as a target in the UK. 10% of land is protected, yet less than 1% of our British seas are protected. So why shouldn't we protect at least 10%? Same as on land. So I think these debates are all happening at the right time. It's COP27. Our country is going through a lot of debate at the moment about environmental laws, etc. So it's a good time to get informed, find out the facts, and get involved.
Absolutely. And of course, the yachting industry can play a big part with that, and the awareness piece, and we hope that we'll continue to support and get the message out there like some of the charities have, and and I know that's important to a lot of businesses.
Yes.
So Aino, it's been brilliant chatting to you. I've absolutely loved this conversation, but we have to bring it to a close. And we always like to finish our chats by asking, an important question to our guests. We have a lot of people who listen to this podcast who listen to it because they're considering the marine industry, or maybe at the beginning of their careers, and they want to hear from successful people and their journeys. And we always ask for our guests to give one piece of advice. So if you could give one piece of advice to somebody maybe at the beginning of their career or considering coming into the yachting industry, what would that be?
I would say go for it. I found it's been a very welcoming industry. And the one piece of advice I would give is dream big. Anything's possible. I never thought I would be the CEO of a yacht design company studio. So dream big, and a lot of things are possible in this industry. It's a very welcoming and warm industry filled with opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, wow, we've packed a lot in 40 minutes or so, haven't we? Leadership challenges, pandemic, your journey, the business, industry trends, sustainability and environmental. So thank you so much. It's been
Thank you. It's a pleasure, James.
Yeah. And, hopefully, we can get back on sometime to give us an update of everything that's happening with you.
Would love to.
Thank you very much, Aino.